Hey, this is Pastor Curry, pastor of the Zion Fair Baptist Church, Wilmington's most exciting church, the church that love ya and ain't a thing you can do about it. Today with Coffee with Curry, I'm going to be a standalone today because I really want to make sure that we hold true to our commitment, and that is to bring awareness to the community, various month awareness programs and things of that nature. This month, the month of May, is Mental Health Awareness Month, and I did not want this month to pass by and we have not done any shows on mental health. With all the things that you're seeing going on in the news today, we just heard about what happened in Texas. A lot of that stems from being mentally healthy. So today with Coffee with Curry, while I am not a psychologist and my specialty area is not in mental health, I did go back, do some research, and I'm going to present to you just some of the research on it so that we can begin to talk about and have a healthy conversation and begin to get help for those who may need help. So why don't you call somebody real quickly, tell them Coffee with Curry is on, and let's get after it. And we're back. As I indicated to you, much of what we are seeing in our country, in our state, in our city, it has to do and is a direct result of the mental stability of individuals. And all too often, we spend a lot of time talking about this is not right and that's not right, and this person lost it because of this, that, or the other, when in actuality, there may be a whole lot of mental health issues going on in our communities, in our homes. And today I just want to spend a little time talking with you all based on the research that I was able to grab hold to and that to make sure that it was good research, that we can really just begin to talk about it. But today we want to first just talk about mental health as a general. Then I want to get into mental illness, because that's the area that I want to make sure that we who are in the African American community, the Latino community, the minority community, we begin to talk about that. That's an issue that we don't talk about. We know some people need help, but we act as if they don't. And I really want to make sure that by the time we close this show out tonight, or today rather, that you will get an opportunity to really evaluate some people who are around you and evaluate yourself to see whether or not you need to get some professional help, because I am a pastor and I believe in prayer, and I'm a strong believer in prayer. And I believe on all situations we must pray, but we also have to get what I call professional help as well. And the Bible says prayer without faith without works is dead. Well, if you're not going to do anything but pray, I don't know how much help that's going to do. We need to make sure that we are getting the professional help needed in the various areas of our lives. So today I just want to start off by talking about what is mental health and just define it for you. And let's just see where we go from there. And then we're going to have different segments of different things that we will talk about. Mental health includes our emotional, psychological, and social well-being. It affects how we think, how we feel, and how we act. All of it deals with social norming. So anything out of the norm of our society as it relates to our mental capacity, that's all deals with how your mental strength should be, how you should be mentally, is based on the norms of our society, and every person has different issues. Today, we're going to talk about various types of mental illnesses, but there are some people who may have a mild case, a severe case, and what we don't want to do is not get treatment for the mild case, but only treat the severe. It's important that we live healthy. And that's why I wanted to make sure we did this show today, because we have to learn to live healthy. In order to be effective in your community, in order to be effective in your churches, in order to be effective in your family, there has to be a healthy mentality. A lot of times the way we were raised, some of the trauma that has occurred in many of our communities have left us scarred. And those scars can cause mental decay. And what I want to make sure is that we're paying attention to that. What I was watching, and my heart was just hurting as I watched what's going on in Texas with those now there's 19 children and 2 adults, and parents waiting for their children to show up, and they didn't show up, and the mental toll that was on those parents. One father, just tweeted out, my baby is in heaven now. And while I appreciate the strength of the father, we have to know that hurts. We have to know that's going to weigh on him for years to come. But what about those children also who were in the classrooms, who were in the building, who experienced that trauma? We often spend a lot of time talking about the ones who had got killed, and that we should. But we also got to think about those who are still around, who saw this traumatic and had this traumatic experience, and how they were affected by it, and how will it hurt them in years to come. Those things are why I'm very interested in making sure that we who are in the minority community begin to talk about our wellness in our mentality, because our psychological formation, it really does matter. It helps us in how we think, how we react, what we do, what we don't do, and all of those things matter. So basically, it includes our emotional, our psychological, and our social well-being. But then I said I need to talk a little bit about the whole notion of what is mental illness. We talked about the general mental health. But what is mental illness? And as defined, it is mental illness are health conditions involving change in emotions, change in our thinking, and change in our behavior. Some psychologists believe that people can be born with mental illness because of dependency on different drugs and narcotics and things of that nature, but most of them believe that most of our mental instability has to do with conditioning, has to do with things that we experienced, and we now live out those experiences. That's why it's important that when a child is being reared, that we don't give them self-fulfilling prophecies that are negative, telling them that they're ugly, telling them that they'll never be anything, spitting out words of hate to our children, because what happens is they begin to eat those words and then become what we say they are. And I think that sometimes that has harmed our community. So mental illness is a change. It's a change in our behavior. It's a change in our emotions, and it's a change in our thinking. When you were once healthy in how you thought, now all of a sudden, because of an experience, there's a shift. And all too often when we have people like who go to prison, they come back totally different. Same thing happens on the positive side. When a person goes away to college, their experience is such a beautiful one that there's a shift in their behavior, but it's a healthy shift. And that's why it's important to understand and watch and see the experiences that we allow our children to go through, but also ourselves. If you find that you've experienced a lot of negative experiences, it becomes important that you go ahead and get some mental help. Don't believe the stigma of, well, if you go sit on a psychologist's chair, then it means you're crazy. No, you want to be healthy. You want to be healthy in all that you do. For those of you who are part of the Christian community, the Lord wants us to be physically fit, mentally alert, and spiritually alive. If you're not all three, then you're partial. You have to be mentally alert as well. So today, I want to make sure that we talk about the illness of mental illness. It's going to be important that we talk about that today, and some of the conditions that really cause it. There are 4 types of mental illnesses that we're going to cover throughout this show. And I want to make sure I talk slow and share. We have several commercials that's going to help with this presentation. The first one is anxiety disorder, and we're going to break it down as we move forward in our show. The second one we're going to talk about is personality disorder. Very interesting. There are some things that is going to be important for you to hear. Psychological or psyche, should I say, disorder. And lastly, eating disorder. When you've heard all four of them, you're going to be surprised, but all of us, I believe, may have been touched by one of them in one way or another. It may not have been severe. It may be mild. But when you start talking about eating disorder, I think sometimes mentally I fall in that bracket because I don't like, to eat too much. I don't like to be larger than I need to be because I want to be healthy. I want to, preach strong. And sometimes I'll do cleansings and things of that nature just to lose the weight. A part of that has to do with the disorder of eating and don't want to, and that might not be a severe case, but a mild case needs to be treated as well. Because if you don't treat the mild, it will become severe. So we're going to talk about anxiety, personality, and psychological as well as the eating disorders today as we go forward in this whole Coffee with Curry. I hope you would really call someone and let them know that we're just going to go through them slowly, and we're going to try our best to give you the best we can so that you can have information that will help you, that will help your family. Hopefully it'll also help the community that you're in. We'll be right back.
I can't breathe. I have migraines, numbness, weight loss. I live with it every day. The illness that I'm suffering from is an anxiety disorder, and it deserves to be treated like any other illness. But it's not.
And we're back. I said we were going to go through all four. The first one we're going to go through today is anxiety disorder. You see, I have my notes before me because I do not want to give any information that is incorrect, but I want to make sure that I'm helping somebody as we are moving through this whole show for today. Anxiety disorder is the body's physical response to a threat or perceived threat. It causes a pounding of the heart, a rapid breathing, butterflies in the stomach, and a burst of energy that causes you to feel like you've lost all control. Anxiety disorder is one that every person really experiences at different levels. We're going to deal with the 4 or 5 different types of disorders that fall under anxiety disorder. But just know this, all of us have a taste of anxiety. We could be waiting for something big to happen and our emotions get out of control and we just, oh my gracious, what's going to happen? But can you imagine the person who lives their life having anxiety issues where they cannot control it? They want to be better. They want to do well. They want to be healthy mentally, but cannot be because of the anxiety that constantly overtake them. They see situations, those who are suffering with anxiety disorder, they see situations at a much worse reality than we do. Or should I say those who may not really suffer with anxiety disorder. It could be, as my mother used to say, you make a mountain out of a molehead, where something may be very small and they see it and it just blows it up really strong. And again, the purpose for us talking about it is that we can stop judging people and help people get help. A lot of people do not want to be in the condition that they're in, but they can't help the condition. This is a medical issue. This is not a person just want to act out. This is not just a person who says, oh, I'm just going to worry about everything. Even when I, as a pastor, talk to our parishioners about, let's trust God on this. Let's believe God for this. And I see the anxiety rising in the persons that I may speak with. I don't criticize them, because sometimes it is psychological, where you're just a worried person, a person who worries, who needs some support, who needs some help, so that your faith can be strengthened. Sometimes you need some professional help from a psychologist or those who handle our emotional formation or our mental formation. So basically, the anxiety, those who suffer with anxiety disorder are those who really they can't control their worry. They can't control their emotions. 1 minute, everything appears to be fine, and then they start worrying even about that. When is something going to happen? And this is something that we really must pay attention to. And we have to pay attention to that in our community, in our families, in our friends, people who just worry. Instead of saying she's tripping, instead of saying he's tripping, no, can we find help? Can we find this person an outlet to be able to treat? Everything is not medicated. Some things just need to be talked through with professionals. And we hope by the end of this show, you'll be able to have a number or somebody you can call in order to make sure you can get some help in these areas. A lot of drug use came out of people inability to handle their mental illnesses. So we have to pay attention to all the aspects before we start judging people and writing people off. But there are some common types of anxiety disorders that I want to make sure that we hit today before we go to our next break. There's one called generalized anxiety disorder, and it's really that's more of the excessive, uncontrolled worry about a range of ordinary issues such as health, work, or even finances. This is people who don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, don't know whether they're going to have a job tomorrow, even though the job could be secured, even though their health can be fine. They don't go to the doctor because they're afraid that the doctor is going to give them a report that they don't want to have. So they just worry, worry, worry. Then there's another one called panic disorder. Panic disorder is a regular panic attacks. They go into attack mode immediately. They're shut down, and they're coming in a sudden, intense episode of irrational fear, where they may even shut up or shut down because of something that they are experiencing. And a lot of times it may not even be something they are experiencing externally. It could also be something that they are experiencing internally. But a lot of cases for those persons who may be looking at me, it could be external. And you just see something and it just causes you to shut down. And we have to pay attention to that, because you cannot live healthy if you are shutting down. Then there's another one called specific phobia. Irrational fears that only apply to one particular situation, such as a fear of animals. Interesting. I have friends who are afraid of dogs, who are afraid of cats. Soon as they see one, they immediately go into panic attack. It could be a nice, cuddly little dog. Don't want to have any dealings with it. It could be a cat that love people. Don't want to have any dealings with it. It can also be, they can have a phobia for people. When they're around people, they just are uncomfortable, shut down. We have to be careful with even the specific phobias, because those things causes us to go into a panic, shut down, and it does not lend itself to healthy living. Then there's another one called obsessive compulsive disorder. Unwanted thoughts and impulses causing repetitive routine behaviors. In other words, can't cope with anxiety. They just, thinking of things that didn't even happen, haven't happened yet, or won't even happen, and they just think about them and they start falling apart. These are really critical to pay attention to when you're talking to people, because you'll find a lot of people suffer with this. They suffer with obsessive compulsive disorder. What are you upset about? Something that, and they'll respond, is something that didn't even happen yet. They're anticipating things to happen, or in their mind, it may have happened, but it really didn't happen in reality. We must pay attention so that we'll be able to get appropriate help. And if it's for nobody else but for yourself, pay attention. Are you stressed out? Do you find yourself worrying about something that had not happened? That's the purpose for giving the information. The last one, and this is really big for those who served in the military, for those who have watched combat, but it's also very big for those who even live in inner cities where a lot of trauma occurs. Here at Zion Fair, we just had two how to cope with trauma workshops to help us with the communities that we are dealing with, because a lot of trauma happens around us. But it's called post-traumatic stress disorder, which is PTSD. And this whole post-traumatic stress disorder is when you feel a fear of avoidance that do not fade away with experiences based on something that has occurred, some trauma that hit your life. I talked about that a little bit when I talked about the school that was just attacked by that demonically demented individual who I believe also had some mental issues and chose probably not to have them addressed in his community by his family. But this whole post-traumatic stress disorder, it's more of a flashback. People who were in the military saw death and saw the doom of it and saw bodies laying everywhere. They have flashbacks, and it causes them to react to the flashbacks. Here in the city of Wilmington, with all the murders and all the things that we see on the streets, it can cause traumatic stress on the body, on the brain, and a person can grow up and then all of a sudden they're starting to have those symptoms. So I hope that you understand that as we talk about anxiety disorder, there's different types and different levels of them, whether it be the generalized, the panic, the specific phobias, as well as the obsessive compulsive disorder and the post-traumatic stress disorder. Whichever ones they are, if the assistance or the help is needed, whether it be personal or for someone you know, we need to make sure that we get them the help that they need in order to be successful. Why live in a prison when you can be free? A lot of these disorders that we talk about are people who are living in prisons. They're shackled. They want to be better. They want to do better. But we are controlled by our mentality, by our mental state of being. And if we don't address these, what'll end up happening is we'll find ourselves trapped in a prison. We'll be right back. And we're back. We had an opportunity to talk about anxiety disorder. Now we're going to move to personality disorder. There are different ways to classify personality disorder, and experts often disagree about the best way to group them together. However, generally there is an agreement on the fact that personality disorder is really I'm trying to find the best word. It's something that we can't overlook. We have to make sure that we're paying close attention to it. And some people with personality disorder don't have full-blown. Most of the people we come in contact with, including ourselves, we have a little personality issues going on in different aspects of our lives. So we're going to hit 4 different areas at some point so that you can hear and see the different traits that are in the personality disorder. It deals with who you are as a person. All of it is connected mentally, but it's more, the first trait is paranoid personality disorder. Paranoia is what many of you may know. And people with this disorder are suspicious and mistrusting of others. Interpret other people's motives and motivations. And they immediately, when you walk to them, they're just suspicious of the other person. And you find a lot of times when people who talk about other people all the time, as soon as they meet them, oh, I don't like her. I don't like her. And oh, I don't like him. Well, why? Because I just don't. A lot of that deals with the personality. It's a part of the whole paranoia that may occur. It's important that we pay attention to that, because that can cause you to lose friends. That can cause you to go into a deeper depth of it. And then all of a sudden you're trusting nobody. That's why I'm asking you to please pay close attention. Because if you get to a place where you trust no one, then you will never be successfully married. You will never be successfully a partner in any kind of relationship, whether it be even at a job or even in church. Because listen, the church is a reflection. Your job is a reflection of the community of which we've come out of. And if ourselves, if we are just, I don't trust anyone, I don't believe, how do you trust God if you can't trust the people God has made? This is why it's so important that we pay close attention to every aspect. And if we need to pray on certain areas and get some support, we must do so. It's another one called narcissistic. And I have to say that because my tongue is thick. But narcissistic personality is a pattern of inflated self-esteem, need for admiration, need for glory, a person who just it's all about me. I'm the greatest. Please praise me. Now, we see that in church with some of the leadership, but I'll give you a good example. In my opinion, this is not the opinions of the show, it's my opinion. Donald Trump is a great example of this. He can't help himself. Everything is about him. He wants loyalty from everyone, but he gives loyalty to no one. That's a person who's a part of this narcissistic personality disorder, because they want to make sure all attention is given to them. They want to make sure that they have all of the glory, but they will give nothing out. It's all about themselves. To ask them to sacrifice and become empathetic over a sympathy moment won't happen, because when a person is narcissistic, what they do is they look for a way to bring attention to themselves. And you've seen those kind of people where it can be something horrible going on and then they immediately change the subject to bring it towards them. This is a true trait of a personality disorder, and they can't help themselves. Instead of running away from that person, share with that person they need to get help. Because getting help will give them an opportunity to be able to get healed. There's another one called obsessive compulsive personality disorder. People with this disorder are preoccupied by rules, order lines, and value work above all other aspects of life. You find these persons who, what is the rule? I was joking with a family member. I'm careful about what I say these days. I was joking with a family member and said that they fall in this bracket of obsessive compulsive personality because I chose to drive 60 in a 55 miles an hour zone, and they were tripping out. Slow down. The speed limit is 55. Why are you doing 60? And I share with them that I'm wrong, I'm guilty, but we don't have to get upset about it. But that happens. I'm not saying this person really had this compulsive personality disorder, but it grows. They obsess with the rules. If the rule says this, and listen, my work is more important than anything else. My work is my name. And this is what the persons who suffer with this obsessive compulsive personality, they want to make sure that they are perfectionists. Because the rule says A, B, C. They will make sure A, B, C is carried out to the letter. You've watched people in your personal lives, it could be yourself, who just want to be a perfectionist in all things. And honestly, that's a little bit of me. I want things to be right. If we talk about the standard of excellence, then excellence is what we must produce. But when we become obsessed with it, then that's when we need to get support. That's when we need to get help. And sometimes, again, you can have a mild case of it. But a mild case can become a major case when you don't get the appropriate help. So this whole obsessive compulsive personality disorder is very important, and you have to make sure that you're not obsessing over things that are trivial. As we say, majoring in the minor and minoring in the major. The rules were there, and rules are established so that we can have a guideline by which we live. But if your life becomes the rule, then you will find yourself alienated, isolated, and abandoned. And then it becomes more issues of mental decay because no one wants to live as an island. People don't like to be around people who are compulsive, who obsess with a rule, who obsess with a way or a certain circumstance. And it will cause depression and other things to happen and occur in their lives. The last one for this area of personality disorder is dependent personality disorder. This is a very interesting one. This disorder causes a fear of being alone and need to be taken care of. There are millions and millions of people who just can't be alone, and they're afraid. So what they will do is they will become a chameleon. They will fit in wherever they can get in. They'll be dependent upon people. You got people who still live with their mother. They're 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years old because they can't manage by themselves. You'll see them walking around following in the shadow of other people. They don't want to be in this prison, but they are in that prison because they suffer with dependent personality disorder. They are the dependent of the person they trust, respect, love. Every person has their own identity. God has made it that way. None of us have the same fingerprints. We are all different. But people who suffer with dependent personality disorder, they find themselves not wanting to cling to their independency, but they want to be in the shadow of another person because there's comfort in that shadow. There's convenience in that shadow. And it causes sometimes hurt because if by some chance their shadow hurt them or devastate them, it can move to emotional distress that can cause all kind of results. We must pay attention when we're raising our children not to become so dependent upon us. We must watch our family, ourselves, that we don't become so dependent upon others that we have lost who we are. And without their identity, we will not be anything. I hope you're really catching this because this whole personality disorder one is where a lot of us fall in, whether it be the paranoid, the narcissistic, obsessive compulsive, as well as the dependent personality. We all fall within them some kind of way. And I shouldn't say we all because that would be uneducated, but many of us fall within the frame of this area. And I hope and trust that you're paying close attention. We'll be right back. And we're back. We had that opportunity to talk about anxiety, personality. Now we move to psychotic disorder. It's a mental illness that causes someone to have an alternate experience of reality. An alternate experience of reality. It causes psychotic delusions and hallucinations. Now, most of the time when we are witnessing people in this area, it's very noticeable. It's very noticeable, but then there are people who have mild cases of it where it's not as noticeable. So what I want to do is I want to just take a minute and talk about, or should I say this segment, and talk about the symptoms of this whole psychotic disorder. One of them is hallucinations. And I bring that because hearing or seeing something that isn't real, such as hearing a voice in your head that's never there, we've watched that. We've paid attention. We've seen people who will say something and then hear it, and then they'll hear something else in their head, and then automatically respond. I never will forget once I was in the airport before these AirPods got famous. And there was a young lady on the phone with someone, and I didn't know she was on the phone, and she was crying and she was talking to herself, and I said to myself, she has to be crazy. Because in my head, she was going back and forth with the person she was dealing with. One minute she was laughing, next minute she started crying. I said she must need some mental help. But she had an ear pod in her ear, and it was funny because I didn't see it until she got up to get on the flight that she had that in her ear. But what's happening now is, take that same analogy. Something is in the formation of the brain to say that to cause the brain to hear a voice, to have an alternate experience, and they are responding to it. Sometimes it's very mild, and at other times it's very major. We tend to catch the major, but the mild cases people enjoy and drift right by. But hallucinating is not one thing that you want to play with, because it can cause you to kill. It can cause one to do all kinds if it's not treated. And it becomes important that we do treat hallucination, because if you don't treat it, then it's going to have other effects. Another area of symptoms is delusions, believing something that can be proven untrue. It's raining outside, and the sun is out. To the person who is normal, who does not suffer with delusion, if you say it's raining and the sun is out, the first thing you think is the person who said this, it's raining, is crazy. But in their mind, they are seeing rain. They have an alternate experience, an alternate reality. And it's important that you clearly understand that. Before we throw people away and dismiss people, you have to understand they are going through an alternate experience, and it has to be treated. It has to be treated. Everything is not treated through medication. Some things are treated through counseling. In this case, I don't know the diagnosis or what needs to happen, other than a psychologist needs to be a part of the equation. Because you can go to your pastor, you can go to the priest, you can go to any spiritual person and say, pray for me. And we will pray. But let me be honest with you. You must get the professional help, because the devil knows how to keep you suppressed. God is a healer. God can do anything. But I am the pastor who preaches God put the psychologist here. God put the doctor here so that we can get the support and the help we need in order to live healthy, happy lives. Be careful when you're hearing things in your head, or you're witnessing and experiencing something that is not real. Hallucination and delusion is very real. It's real in all communities. Some communities get the treatment. Others just bypass it, say they'll get over it, they'll grow out of it. But what happens is when you don't treat it appropriately, they grow up, but not out of it. And as they have experience trying to go to school, trying to be a normal citizen in an unstable world, because in their world is alternate from the world that they have to matriculate in. So you have to make sure that this is being treated. It's one more area. Confused thinking under this whole psychotic disorder. Confused thinking. Thoughts are jumbled, and the person can't make sense of what other people are saying. Confused thinking. You're talking normal to them, but how they process what you're saying to them is the problem. You're saying, why can't you get it? Why don't you understand what I'm saying? Because that person can be suffering from confused thinking. Their brain is wired in such a way that it causes them not to process what you're saying. And you can get frustrated, you can give up on the person, but it does not help the person. You have to understand that the whole notion of unraveling the confusion is getting them help. Stop believing they're just acting, pretending. Mental illness is real. It is real in every community. We used to have an ongoing joke when I was a young kid in the projects of North Philadelphia. Only the crazy people go to the psyches or to the psychologists. Not true. Those who want to be whole will go to a psychologist. If I'm sick, and we're going to be bringing my doctor in because we're going to have some more various different shows on health. Mental health happens to be one of them. But if I'm sick, I'm going to go to my doctor and I'm going to hear what he says and do what he tells me to do so that I can be made whole. If you find yourself mentally not stable, you're going to have to do what you have to do in order to be made whole. If it means sitting down with a psychologist, you have to do it. There is no shame in wanting to be whole. There is no shame in sitting down with a professional so that you can get the treatment you need in order to matriculate in a society that we call normal, but in your world, it's got its issues. And the last one was this whole confused. How people process what you're saying to them and why they can't understand it is because they have an alternate reality. And what they're hearing is totally different. If I begin to speak in Greek right now, 90% of my viewers would not know what I'm talking about. When you're talking to somebody who has confused thinking, it's like you speak in a language they know nothing about. We must now become very sympathetic, very empathetic to individuals who suffer with any form of mental illness because it is real. They're locked inside of a cage and they want to be made free. How do they become free? By getting them the appropriate support, the appropriate counseling, the appropriate help that they will be able to become whole. This whole notion of the psychotic disorder is real. And I need you to make sure that you're paying close attention to yourself first and to those who are around you secondly. Let's not say we're going to pray about it unless we're going to also do something about it. I keep saying that because as a pastor, I listen to other preachers, I listen to members who say, Pastor, let's just pray about it and God will do this and God will do that. God will not send us to help if the help was not needed. Give you a story before we go to our break. This is not a truth. This is a story that I used in a couple of my sermons, and I want to use it today as it just came to my mind. There was a woman who said to her community, "I'm a woman of great faith." And the newscaster came on and said, everybody in the city needs to move on. Everybody in the city needs to get out because we get ready to have a big flood and it's going to kill everybody who stays around. The woman said, "I have great faith. I'm going nowhere." The flood started coming, and a guy on the boat said, "Hey, woman, come on, get on the boat. I need for you to come on because you're going to drown." She said, No, I won't drown. I believe God. I have great faith." The flood kept coming. She's now at the top of her house, and she's out looking out the window, and the water is all the way up there. There's a person in a helicopter. Said, "Woman, I'm letting the ladder down. Grab on. Save your life." She said, "That ain't gonna happen. I'm a woman of great faith. God will not allow anything to happen to me. Go ahead with your ladder. I'm fine." Well, the story ends this way. The woman drowned. She gets to heaven and she says to the Lord, "How dare you allow the opportunity to show the world how powerful you are to allow me to die?" And the Lord said these words to her. "I sent you the newscast, I sent you the boat, and I sent you the helicopter. And you didn't take neither of the three. You should have died. Because when I send you something, take it." We'll be right back. And we're back. For this last segment, we had an opportunity to talk about anxiety disorder, personality disorder, and psychotic disorder. Now I want to turn our attention to the last one, and that is called eating disorder. There's so many disorders, and I want to make sure that you understand that all of us need to make sure that we are healthy in every area. But eating disorder involves an unhealthy preoccupation with eating, exercise, or body shape. It's more than just eating. It could be mental with how we look, our appearance. And I told you at the onset of our show today that I sometimes struggle in that area as well. My whole life, I was always overweight, and I always went on diets after diets after diets. And it wasn't until I had a conversation with a friend who happens to be a psychologist and share with me, he said, you need to work on that because it will become an obsession of you and you will find yourself not liking yourself. But I want to just go over a couple symptoms in this area so that you can get a feel for whether or not you fall in this area. One symptom is a preoccupation and concern about your appearance, food, and gaining weight. Do you find yourself saying you're fat? I'm fat. Oh, I really wish I can get rid of this. And then you want to lose weight, but you continue to say to yourself, I'm gaining. That can be in your mind, and you have to be careful because that's called an eating disorder. It will alter your eating. It'll cause you to eat things that you shouldn't eat, but yet submit to things that you shouldn't. Number two, another one, extreme dissatisfaction with your body. You would like to lose weight, even though friends and family are worried that you are already underweight. My daughter said to me this week, she said, Dad, you are very muscular. I laughed because in her world, her dad is. In my world, no, I'm lumpy, as I share with her. But if you find that you're not overweight, excessively overweight, but yet you keep saying you are, it alters your mind and how you perceive you. You become dissatisfied with your body, and whenever there's dissatisfaction, depression hits, suppression of your feelings, self-esteem is affected. You don't want to live unhealthy in this area. Another one is a fear of gaining weight. This is the person who won't even eat. You're afraid that you're going to gain some weight. God forbid if the doctor tell you to weigh yourself and you're 2 pounds more than you were when you were, in high school or something. It'll just send you wild and mad. Another one is you let people around you think you have eaten when you haven't. Watch that. You're telling people, "Oh, I already ate. I'm good," when in actuality you didn't. It has to do with the fact that your eating disorder is the fact that you don't want to eat, and you want people to think you want to eat because you want to make sure that you lose the weight that you're trying to lose, or you want to lose or desire to lose, but your mind is never going to let you stop losing. You're going to lose, if you say, "I want to lose 5 pounds," you're going to lose the 5, and then you're going to say, "I need to lose 5 more." Then you're going to say, "I need to lose 5 more." But then you'll start telling stories and saying to people, "I already ate. I did. I'm good. Everything is fine." When in actuality, you're not. Here's another one. You are secretive about your eating habits because you are unhealthy. Now, watch that. That's a little different. Some people I know who have diabetes. You know you're not supposed to eat certain things, but you eat it anyway. All that starch. Stuff that you shouldn't eat, high in cholesterol, you shouldn't be eating it, but you sneak into it. That's an eating disorder. And that's a mind thing. I know I'm going to die if I keep eating all this pork and have high blood pressure, but you do it anyway. That's a disorder. I know that if I don't stop doing this, something bad is going to happen to me, but you do it anyway. It's important you pay attention. You may say, "Oh, that's healthy." It's not healthy. Because if you know something is going to kill you and you continue to do it, it is an alteration to reality. That's what mental illness really is. It's an alteration. It's like, okay, I understand the real world, but I'm going to do this anyway. Another one. Eating makes you feel anxious, upset, and guilty. You just had a good meal prepared for you, and now you're feeling bad. You're feeling anxious about it. Oh my God, I don't want to eat this food. It got too much butter in it. Got too much this. And you, for those of you who don't suffer with this, it sounds like I'm just saying words. But to the person who seriously, in secret, suffers with eating disorder, they know exactly what street I'm on, and they know I'm at their address. Here's another one. You feel you are not in control around food. That's obsessive eating. We had a friend I told one time, "You might as well just take your fork and sit at the buffet line. You just got to eat everything. Because whenever there's food, it's time to eat. There is no barrier of just take a little of this, a little of that, fill their plates up." It's a disorder. Making sure that I get everything I want now and can't eat half of it, it's a disorder. It's in your mind saying, "I'm hungry." And that's why they tell you when you're hungry not to go to the supermarket because you'll buy extra stuff. But when you're dealing with this whole feeling that you're out of control with food around you, it deals with you just being obsessed with eating. You don't have to have, a chicken cheese steak, fries, and a hamburger, and also curly fry. It's there in a person who's trapped in this. It's there, so it's there for me to eat. There is no control, but you have to have control. Here's another one. You keep checking your body. For example, weighing yourself, pinching yourself to see how thick is the rolls. And you may be surprised. You may think that's only for people who are heavy, but that happens with even people who are not heavy. These are signs that you have an eating disorder. You check yourself. You're on a scale checking your weight. And, there are people I know who are underweight, and they checking themselves because they want to gain weight. So they'll eat a whole lot to try to gain the weight. That's still an eating disorder. Here's the last one I'll do for the day. Making yourself throw up, vomit, or use laxatives in order to lose weight. Or this whole new tea stuff that people are taking, cleansing themselves. Because I've taken the tea so I can, to cleanse myself so I can stay healthy. But people take it to lose weight. That's an eating disorder. And I hope that you pay close attention to this eating disorder as well. Because all too often we think it's normal. But the one that I want you to pay attention to is when you hide and do things. You have the honey bun, knowing you got diabetes, knowing that your sugar count cannot hold a honey bun, but you eat it anyway, knowing that it's going to cause you some issues later on. I hope that this time really gave you some perspective, because mental illness is real and we cannot discount it, especially in our community with all the trauma and all the stigmas that happens in our community. We must be mentally fit. We must be whole. We must be strong. We'll be right back. And we're back. I hope and trust that you had an opportunity to learn something in the time that we shared together today. I know I'm always having invited guests in, and I would have had a psychologist to come in today, but we were so busy doing other things, I wasn't able to get the person I wanted to bring on. At some point, I will bring them on. However, giving you the information is very important. I did do the research to try to make sure that I gave you a good show today, and I hope it helped somebody. There are 4 different types of mental illnesses that we talked about. We talked about anxiety disorder. We talked about personality disorder. We talked about psychotic disorder, and then eating disorder. All 4 of them matter. All 4 of them have stigmas on them. But listen, let's break the chain that are around the brains, the mentality of individuals who are hurting silently. And let's get help. Let's get help for ourselves. Let's get help for our family. Let's get help for our friends. We will pray about it. We will talk to God about it. But God has sent me to tell you, after you've prayed, after you have talked to God about it, let's go get a psychologist to help us become whole. Help us become who God has called us to be. Some of these conditions are very, very serious. All of them are to be taken for real. But some play themselves out much stronger than others. But let's not discount any of them. If you found that something I said today that was really helpful for you, I ask that you would just make it happen for yourself. Release yourself that you may be made whole. This is Pastor Curry, and I want to take this opportunity to thank you for constantly watching us. My goal is to give you quality programming. And if today we have been a blessing to you, please make sure you let us know. Until the next time, God bless.